Today's video, we're going to be ranking the top 10 best bloodlines in Shindo life. For number 10, this is going to be Renshiki. Now, Renshiki is kind of a forgotten good bloodline in my opinion. A lot of people don't use it, even though it's got a rework and it's really, really good. Now, I'm going to quickly explain why. Renshiki's second form, which is only good for boss killing, it's also good for dungeon. So if you want to pick this up for boss killing, you're also going to get the plus of it being really good for dungeon as well. So definitely pick up Renshiki because it's really good at dungeon. Its golem is kind of like a Sensano, so pretty much everyone that is kind of like that has a Sensano form, Shindai Rengoku, Shindai Akuma, you know, go on and on. They all are really good because they have that Sensano form, and this has a similar form where it turns you into a golem, where the M1s are really overpowered. And not only that, its Q-spec is kind of like a flame bird, and this flame bird does a ton of damage, giving it a stun to the boss as well, which you can do M1s, which its M1s are really good. They're not the best M1s in the game, not as good as like Shindai Rengoku or something, but they are really, really good for what they are. So they kind of give a stun a bit, so Q-spec is really good. The moves are kind of, they're alright. The first move is absorption, the second one is a axe sort of attack, and the third one's a throwable bomb. So the first move is kind of not really that good, but the second and third move are pretty decent. They're not phenomenal, but really I would get this one for the second form it has. It's golem form, so definitely pick up Renshiki. For number 9, this is going to be Shindai Rengoku, and you might have saw this one coming. Shindai Rengoku is a phenomenal bloodline, not only for its boss killing abilities, but for its green skull missions and its dungeon ability. So this is definitely a really good one to pick up. It is, of course, has its second form, which is a Sensano that is really good at killing bosses because it has those extended M1s that you can really use to take advantage of these bosses, and you can use that in dungeon as well. Its Q-spec is a phenomenal, but I want to highlight one move, which is its last move, which is the counter. This move does a ton of damage to the bosses, almost taking half their HP. It's a very good broken move that does a ton of damage that a lot of people don't know about, so that's why it's really going on this list. Its first move is it's decent. Its second move is really not that good, but its third move is really overpowered, probably the best move in this entire bloodline kit for Shindai Rengoku. But that's going to be for number 9. For number 8, this is going to be Zeno Dokai. Now, Zeno Dokai is a bit of an interesting one because before it used to be, probably would go number 1 on this list before all the nerfs it received, but it's still a really good bloodline for boss killing. A lot of people still don't really use this bloodline, and it's still really good, but you know, of course there are better options. But if you get Zeno Dokai, I wouldn't spin it off because it is really good for boss killing. It has some sort of bubble form or like a wave form that you can send out, and it's really good. And it also has a second form which acts like almost as the Sensano, which I've talked a little bit briefly about that. Sensanos are really overpowered in Shindo life for boss killing, so it is really, really good for that. Since it has that second form, Zeno Dokai is kind of busted, and it's got that C-spec which really does a ton of damage pretty much at all bosses, Kaguku and all the other ones. It's really good for not only the boss scroll missions, but event bosses as well. So definitely pick up Zeno Dokai. For number 7, this is going to be Tengoku. Now, Tengoku is an interesting one because it takes a lot of chi. It does a ton of damage. It's probably one of the most high damage bloodlines in the entire game. So it does a ton of damage, but it comes at a cost, and that's going to be the chi. It takes a lot of chi. Like I mean, if you're like level 500, I would not recommend using this bloodline given how much chi it uses, but if you're like level 1000 and you get this bloodline, definitely use it for the bosses because it is a really good bloodline, and it takes a lot of damage off the bosses and event bosses as well. And it's really good for green skull missions as well. Not really good for dungeon, but it's really good for that. For number 6, this is going to be Apollo Sand. Now, this is really meta right now, probably one of the most meta bloodlines in Shindo life, only really for one reason. It's got one move that does like a spiky move that does a ton of damage, similar to Shadow. It's got a spiky move that does a ton of damage, so definitely get this one and combine it with Shadow. You pretty much got the best boss killing moveset in the entire game, but we'll talk a little bit more about Shadow a little later. But Apollo Sand has a really good form that a lot of people don't really use. It's got phenomenal stats, and its M1s are kind of really good. So if you combine that with its mode for boss killing, you could pretty much get really good. Of course, it's not the best one, but it is really good for boss killing. For number 5, this is going to be Code Gayen. Now, Code Gayen is definitely one of the most busted bloodlines in Shindo life. It's really good for PvP, probably the best bloodline for PvP, probably the best for green scroll missions, and of course, really good for boss scroll missions. So Code Gayen has a couple of moves, and its form is really overpowered. It kind of is like imagine Boramaki plus Shindai Rengoku, and that's kind of what Code Gayen is. It has a lot of teleportation moves a lot of teleportation moves, which gives it kind of a broken ability, so really good for boss killing. For number 4, this is going to be Shindai Akuma. Now you might be wondering why Shindai Akuma ranks this high, and I'll explain really quickly why. Shindai Akuma has a broken Q spec, so basically when you go into the form, which is its Sensano form, and you use the Q spec, it is absolutely busted. It pretty much has no cooldown, and you can just spam this Q spec against the boss. It's either its C spec or Q spec, but I think it's its Q spec, and it's kind of like a throwable sort of kunai that you can throw at the enemy, and then that pretty much you can just keep spamming that. But not only is it really good for that one in particular, it also is really good for some of its moves. And don't forget, it's a Sensano, so you're gonna get that ability to spam those M1s against the bosses. So not only that, it's a really good one for just boss killing in general, because you can spam those M1s, you can spam the Q spec, and it's a pretty much probably one of the most easiest bloodlines for boss killing. Pretty much the easiest one. Shadow might be a little bit more easier, but you got to be a little bit more, you know, you got to keep your distance with Shadow. But Shindai Akuma, you can literally just sit there, spam M1s and spam the Q spec, and you'll pretty much be fine. For number 3, this is going to be Gatsuga. Now Gatsuga is kind of a really busted bloodline in my opinion. It's really good. It's kind of got like another Sensano form. It's kind of like a Ninetales form where you can just spam M1s. Its Q spec is really good as well. So I definitely would not miss this one out. Gatsuga is really good not only for green scroll missions, but it's great for boss missions. It's a really good one altogether. For the number 2, it's going to be Icen. So if I said that correctly, it's pretty much like an Icen from a Hollow Beach. So it's really a really good one, almost near to number 1 for boss killing. And this is a surprise to no one. If you've seen the meta in Shindo Life, this is definitely a busted one. Icen is definitely phenomenal. So for number 1, this is going to be Shadow. Now this is probably not a surprise to anybody who plays this game. Pretty much everybody uses Shadow for boss killing. This is the number 1 method to kill bosses, and I'll tell you a few combos that you can use with Shadow to make it even more busted. So the most common one is going to be Shadow plus Apollo Sand. Now Shadow plus Apollo Sand is really good because you have that move when it's like a spiky thing, and then you have the Shadow that has a spiky form as well. But if you're going to use either ask what form to use, Apollo Sand or Shadow, I would use the Shadow one because its Q spec is also really high for boss killing as well. So if you combine Apollo Sand plus Shadow, you can get a really busted combo that really deletes the enemies. Another one is going to be Shadow plus Shindai Rengoku. Now if you remember what I said, Shindai Rengoku has that third counter that pretty much does a ton of damage against bosses. It's a counter that takes half their damage, so if you combine that plus Shadow, you can get an absolutely busted bloodline combo. And another one, the final one I'm going to recommend, is going to be Shadow plus Tengoku. If you use the moves from Tengoku and Shadow, you can get an absolutely busted combo that is really good. And of course, don't forget about Shindai Akuma, but really I would just use Shadow and Apollo Sand. So that's going to be the entire video, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.